You're not here by accident. This is Saga Spot TV, the channel that doesn't just tell stories, it revives them. Let's go deep, let's go real. Imagine a world where your very survival hinges on a single crop. A world where its sudden disappearance could plunge millions into an abyss of starvation and despair. This is not a distant fantasy, but the chilling reality that befell Ireland in the mid-19th century. A disaster so profound it etched itself into the soul of a nation. This is the somber, reflective story of the Great Famine, a period of unimaginable suffering that forever altered the course of Irish history. Before the fateful year of 1845, Ireland was a land of stark contrasts and deep-seated vulnerabilities. Its verdant landscapes belied a precarious existence for the vast majority of its people, who lived under the shadow of British rule and an exploitative land system. For millions, the humble potato was not merely a food source, it was the bedrock of their survival, a caloric miracle that sustained families on tiny plots of land. This reliance was born of necessity, as tenant farmers struggled to pay rents to absentee landlords, often English or Anglo-Irish. The potato allowed them to feed their families from small holdings, leaving other crops like grain and livestock to be sold for rent. It was an efficient, if dangerously singular, solution to widespread poverty, supporting a population that had swelled to over 8 million. The social fabric was woven tightly around this staple. Generations had known no other way of life, their daily rhythms dictated by the planting, tending, and harvesting of the potato. Yet, beneath this seemingly stable agricultural system lay an inherent fragility, a ticking time bomb waiting for the right catalyst to ignite a national catastrophe. No one could foresee that the very foundation of their existence was about to crumble, not just for a season, but for years. Then, in the summer of 1845, an insidious enemy arrived, carried across the Atlantic on the winds of fate. Phytophthora infestans, a microscopic fungus known as the potato blight, began its devastating march across Europe. Its arrival in Ireland was swift and merciless, a silent killer that struck at the heart of the nation's food supply. The initial reports were met with disbelief, then growing horror. Fields that had promised a bountiful harvest suddenly turned black, their vibrant green leaves wilting and decaying. The potatoes themselves, once dug from the earth, were found to be rotten, a putrid, inedible mush. The air filled with the stench of decay, a grim harbinger of the suffering to come. This was not a localized problem. It was a widespread epidemic, consuming entire regions with terrifying speed. The initial hope that it was a temporary setback, a bad harvest that would pass, quickly evaporated. The blight returned with even greater ferocity in 1846, and again in subsequent years, proving to be a relentless, recurring nightmare. A nation built on potatoes could no longer feed itself, and the stark reality of widespread hunger began to grip every corner of the island. The illusion of self-sufficiency shattered, replaced by a chilling certainty of impending doom. As the blight continued its relentless assault, the initial hunger of 1845 deepened into a profound, agonizing desperation. The years 1846, 1847, and 1848 became known as Black 47, a period of unimaginable suffering that pushed the Irish people to the very brink of extinction. Food became a distant memory for many, replaced by the gnawing pangs of starvation. Families, once vibrant and resilient, withered away. They scoured the land for anything edible: grass, nettles, seaweed, even bark from trees. These desperate measures offered little sustenance, only prolonging the inevitable. The human body, deprived of nourishment, became a hollow shell, susceptible to a host of diseases that thrived in the weakened population. Typhus, cholera, dysentery, and scurvy swept through communities like wildfire, claiming lives already weakened by hunger. Workhouses, intended as a last resort, became overcrowded death traps, their conditions breeding further contagion. Entire villages were emptied, their inhabitants either dead or fled, leaving behind a haunting silence. the sight of children with distended bellies and hollow eyes became tragically common, a stark testament to the unfolding horror. This was not merely a famine, it was a national collapse, a systematic dismantling of life itself. While the potato blight was a natural phenomenon, many historians argue that the scale of the Great Famine's devastation was exacerbated, if not directly caused, by political decisions and prevailing ideologies. Ireland, as part of the United Kingdom, was subject to policies formulated in London, often by officials who held deeply prejudiced views of the Irish people. The prevailing economic philosophy of laissez-faire dictated minimal government intervention, even in the face of mass starvation. Astonishingly, throughout the worst years of the famine, food, grain, livestock, and dairy products continued to be exported from Ireland to Britain. While Irish peasants starved, ships laden with provisions sailed from Irish ports, a stark and painful irony that fueled deep resentment. Relief efforts, when they did come, were often too little, too late, and burdened by punitive conditions. The infamous soup kitchens and public works schemes provided meager aid, often requiring arduous labor from those already too weak to work. Some British officials, like Charles Trevelyan, the Assistant Secretary to the Treasury, viewed the famine through a lens of moral judgment. They believed it was an act of God intended to teach the Irish a lesson, or that the Irish were inherently lazy and responsible for their own plight. This profound lack of empathy and understanding transformed a natural disaster into a human catastrophe, leaving an indelible scar on Anglo-Irish relations and fueling the fires of Irish nationalism for generations to come. With no food, no hope, and a government seemingly indifferent to their plight, millions of Irish people faced an impossible choice: stay and starve, or flee their homeland. The decision to leave was agonizing, tearing families apart and severing ties to ancestral lands. Between 1845 and 1855, an estimated 1.5 to 2 million people emigrated, a mass exodus unprecedented in European history. They boarded overcrowded, unsanitary vessels, often dubbed coffin ships, bound for distant shores: America, Canada, Australia, and Britain. The journey itself was a perilous ordeal, with thousands succumbing to disease and malnutrition in the cramped, squalid conditions below deck. The Atlantic became a watery grave for countless souls seeking a new beginning. Those who survived the harrowing voyage arrived in new lands, often penniless and traumatized, facing prejudice and hardship. Yet, from this crucible of suffering, a new global Irish identity began to emerge. These resilient survivors and their descendants would build new lives, contributing immensely to the cultures and economies of their adopted nations. They formed what we now call the global Irish diaspora, a vast network of people bound by a shared heritage and the enduring memory of the Great Famine. Their stories of perseverance and success became a testament to the indomitable spirit of a people who refused to be broken. By the time the blight finally receded and the famine officially ended around 1852, the demographic and social landscape of Ireland had been irrevocably altered. The statistics are chilling. Over 1 million people had perished from starvation and disease, and another 1 to 2 million had fled their homeland. Ireland's population, which stood at over 8 million before the famine, plummeted to around 4.4 million by 1911, a decline from which it has never fully recovered. The Great Famine was far more than a period of hunger. It was a cataclysm that reshaped Ireland's society, culture, politics, and national identity. It left a legacy of trauma, emigration, and a deep-seated distrust of British rule, fueling the struggle for Irish independence. It taught a painful lesson about vulnerability, political responsibility, and the profound human cost of indifference. Yet, it also forged an enduring spirit of resilience, community, and a powerful sense of shared history that continues to define the Irish people worldwide. This somber chapter in history serves as a powerful reminder of how fragile a nation can be when faced with both natural disaster and systemic neglect. It compels us to reflect on the responsibilities of governance, the dangers of prejudice, and the enduring strength of the human spirit to survive, to remember, and to rebuild, even from the darkest of times. Join us in remembering the stories that shaped our world. Explore more untold histories and understand the profound impacts of past events. Subscribe to Saga TV, share this documentary with others, and engage in the conversation about how history continues to inform our present. Let these stories serve as a beacon, guiding us toward a more empathetic and just future.